Hey everyone, hey and welcome back to yet another episode of Alpha Metallica. This is your host Tom Kwei. I'm starting as I always do by saying thank you so much. Thank you for following us on the Twitter at MetallicaPod. Get in touch with the show metallicapod@gmail.com if you want to come on the show to review a Metallica song with me. We have our Patreon as well. We have many other avenues you can get at us. Check the description on the episodes, leave us a review on iTunes, all that good stuff. Today we are back with yet another interview episode. You know, these have been getting more high profile, as you may have noticed. We had the Angry Video Game Nerd on, which was royalty to me, and then we had Ray Burton on, which is, you know, royalty to everyone really. So I know a lot of people have enjoyed that episode, so please check it out if you haven't already. Leave a comment. And today is no different really. You know, I have a hugely influential producer, a titan, a real cornerstone figure in the career of Metallica here, the producer of 3 of their best albums, Flemming Rasmussen. How's it going?
It's going great, yeah. I'm sitting here in the sunshine in good old Denmark. It's fantastic.
Good. Thank you so much for joining me. This is very, very exciting to talk about. Like, I mean, I don't want to kind of just pigeonhole you as, you know, Metallica's producers. Obviously, we're going to talk about a lot of... Does that happen day to day? Do you find that always happens?
More or less, yeah.
Yeah.
It's obviously the albums I've made that sold the most and got the biggest recognition. So yeah, I'm often referred to as Metallica producer. But you know, in different circles, they refer to different albums because I've done a lot of different stuff. So yeah, it depends on who you talk to. But most people refer to me as the producer of the 3 good Metallica albums, so to speak.
Well, I mean, they are, like, regardless of if they're the best for you or they're the only ones you like, they are something special, that era, really, aren't they? That kind of 80s time.
Yeah, it's where Metallica kind of matured. So obviously, yeah, and the development from one album to another is pretty huge as they progress as musicians as well and in their life. So yeah, it's pretty important. Yeah.
And I mean, we'll get to the development of the band in the studio, which I am really curious to ask about, and obviously the amount of classic songs that you helped put together. You know, real, as I say, like baffling pieces of magistry that we just listen to constantly. But starting with yourself, born on the 1st of January, is that right? New Year's Day?
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Right.
That's, that kind of coincides with spring 9 months earlier and everybody getting out in the sun. So, yeah.
Right. And Copenhagen, Denmark, is this where you sort of grew up your formative years?
Yeah, exactly. I've been living here all my life and still here. Obviously went to LA for a short period of time to record some stuff, but yeah, decided I wanted to stay here.
And I mean, growing up musically, what were the bands you're into at that time?
I was a little too young to be part of the hippie movement, but really liked the music. So I would say, I mean, I have an older brother who's 7 years older than me, and he, kind of got the very first Rolling Stones album he bought and have it in like a mono version and stuff like that. I keep, every time I visit him, I take it out, and because I love looking at it, because it says in brackets after each song what dance you can dance to. Right. So like, not Fade Away is a bossa nova and stuff like that. It's really ridiculous, but apparently you did that in those days. So I kind of grew up not with the Beatles kind of thing, but with the Rolling Stones thing, and like late 60s, start of the 70s. I got into the hard rock thing with Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, Uriah Heep, all that stuff. So I was into the hard rock thing, it was called then, or just rock basically, because and then everything in those days. I was a Slade fan instead of a Sweet fan and stuff like that.
And you mentioned Deep Purple. You'd later go on to work with Ritchie Blackmore, is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was actually one of the reasons why I ended up doing Metallica, because they'd heard what I've done with Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow. That came about. They were on tour, and they had like a weekend off in Copenhagen, and the promoter, which was a really good friend of mine, we have, because we like the same kind of music, Eric Thompson. He called and said they had a day off. They wanted to do the B-side for All Night Long from the Rising album, which was supposed to be an instrumental, and asked if we could do it. It was on a Sunday. I said, yeah, Richie Blackmore is for sure. And that was with Cozy Powell on drums, and he was my favorite drummer at the time. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. And this was also a really big disappointment because I felt his drums sounded really like shit. It's like you get this total icon you totally love, and he puts his drum kit up and they sounded horrible. I was panicking, but yeah, it turned out really well. So, and then Richie called me. They called me like 3 months later and booked a whole album, and that was difficult to cure.
And you were so young at that time. Were you like 24, 25 or something?
Yeah, I started in the studio straight after I was 18. But I was always the kid that whenever everybody else got mopeds and you know all this or cars, I got a new stereo. So I was into the tape recorder thing, you know, editing, and I was actually doing what now is known as mixtapes.
Right.
I was just doing it on a 1/4-inch Sony or Revox tape recorder. So I had like, you know, huge 15-inch reels with like 3 hours of music on it everything was edited, so there was no breaks. It just kept going.
That's crazy. Like, do you still have that in any form?
I think, yeah, I have some of them on my. I've actually digitized some of them, not the very old ones, but you know, some of the later ones. That's
good. That's good. I mean, I hate to sound like a Philistine millennial, but like, if you could put that playlist on Spotify, people would appreciate it.
Oh yeah, that would be ridiculous. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, people would. So you know, but whatever, maybe an idea for the future. But like at this time, I mean, look, I'm quite naive to the politics maybe of the studio. Was it hard as a young, you know, guy getting respect from these musicians, or was that not a problem?
I think the problem was more the self-confidence you need to have when you're in the studio, because recording artists tends to get in and out of studios, and they more or less expect people to know what they're doing. So they don't really have that kind of you know, you have to prove it that you're good, because most of the time they actually pick the studio because of the people in it, not because of what they have in terms of equipment, because that's more or less, you know, whether it's one desk or the other desk or another tape recorder. It's I mean, the reason why Rainbow came back was because I just stuck a mic in front of Richie's amp, turned it up, and he went, yeah, that's it.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, and it did sound really good.
Yeah.
But he'd had trouble getting his guitar sound in other studios. And apparently, you know, I just stuck, you know, a Shure SM7, which is like a bit more expensive than a standard 57, which is probably the cheapest but most versatile mic you can have ever. But I just stuck that in front of his cab, and that was it. But I had like the desk I have, and I still have it, is that Trident A range from '76, and it does add a lot of character to the sound, and he really liked that.
And at this time, you know, soon Metallica come along. Soon after you've been working with Richie, and were you aware of Kill 'Em All at all?
No, not at all. I had no idea that there was a band that existed that was called Metallica. I obviously heard it when they called me and asked if I was interested, and I immediately said yes, because it was, you know, my kind of alley with, you know, the hard rock thing. The heavy metal thing hadn't really been established by then. It was total underground, so it was just, you know, hard rock. So yeah, no, I immediately said yes, but you know, I didn't know Lars, I didn't know the band, I didn't know anything about it at all.
And apparently you and Lars, early on, or perhaps throughout it, would speak Danish to each other.
Yeah, we had this thing going because we were Danish. As much as possible, we would speak English in the studio. Right. But if, you know, if he had like a thing he wanted, you know, really fast, we'd just go Danish. And it even at one point, I think it was when we did Master of Justice, we kind of had this thing where when we started talking Danish, we'd like we're talking right now, we'd actually, just slip in the word James.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd go sit and talk like we do now, James, and then we'd, talk on and go James, and he would go, "What the fuck?" just to piss him off. That was pretty cool.
And
because he obviously he didn't understand a word, and he thought we were talking about him, which we weren't. But it's just to wind him up. So,
and obviously the band are coming to at this point the Sweet Silence Studios. I mean, build us a quick picture of this because it's quite the legendary spot, right?
It was situated on the first floor actually of an old industrial complex. We had like a huge back room, which was like with wooded floor and brick walls and a wooden ceiling. And it was like 12 by 10 meters or something, and that's where we put the drums, and which was like situated right back in the back of the studio. It was actually what the studio looked like before we built it, and that went on for like 100 meters. A really long building. It's now apartments. Somebody's actually having a living room at the spot where Lars recorded Ride and Master.
Oh my god! and they don't even know.
No, probably not. Some of them might have gone into the history of the building. I got one mail from somebody who asked if I had any pictures. And I went, nah, I'm not gonna up the price on your apartment. But yeah, and the studio was a huge control room. We had a machine room where all the machines were, tape machines and stuff. And we had a big recording room and 2 booths. And at the end of the drum booth was at the back, and it had 2 doors that would open out to this big back room. And sometimes we'd put the drums in the drum room and open the doors and use the ambience there. But in Lars's case, Metallica case, we actually put the drums in that big room. And I stuck like mics in every corner, and they really loved that.
Yeah,
we're actually looking at studios in LA to record Master of Puppets. Me and Lars. I took like a 2-week trip to find a good studio to record in, because they wanted to do it with me, but they wanted to stay in the States, and we didn't really find anything that matched that. So the band decided that all right, we'll do it in Copenhagen again. So.
It's a shame, really, though, with Sweet Silence, because to me, Flemming, it's like an Abbey Road type place. It's such a
Yeah, but it was rented, and we missed it by a day to buy it. So it's one of those things where you go, life would have been so different if that had happened.
Yeah, but I mean, regardless, these classic albums came out at that time, so we can kind of, celebrate them. And I'm reading about, the ideas when they were doing Ride the Lightning. The shifts were quite odd, weren't they? You'd start quite late and finish quite early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had, in those days, studios were a good business, unlike now. We had like 2 shifts, 1 day shift and 1 night shift. And day shift started at 10 in the morning till 6, and then there was an hour crossover from 6 till 7, and we'd start at 7 at night, and we'd go on till like 3, 4, 5 in the morning. And this was pretty late. It was September, as far as I remember. And we continued for quite a while. So it was pretty cold in Denmark, and so there was a lot of tuning involved with the drums and stuff, because they've been standing in that cold room all day.
Yeah.
And a lot of setting up the desk again for recording, because I had like loads of mics on there. But then again, that turned out to be a good thing, because I now have all the notes from what we did. So I can kind of say, well, we EQ'd it and this freaking blah blah, all this stuff, all the nerdy stuff.
Yeah, all the stuff that's in Back to the Front, I guess, for Master of Puppets, like.
Yeah.
Which is we'll get to that book, great book, and one of the things you're talking about as well, James's singing, you had to sort of coax it out of him a little bit.
Yeah, he was pretty shy, in that he didn't he didn't really consider himself a singer. He was more like shouting. So just getting him to do the vocals was in the beginning pretty hard, but he obviously got more better and better at it, and then now he's doing really good. But in those days, harmonies and stuff, that he was not into that at all. I used to describe him as an angry young man.
But I mean, so talented, weren't they? The band, like they were even younger than yourself at that point.
It was so obvious that they had something that that nobody else had, and my partner in the studio at the time came from a jazz background, and he didn't get it at all. He was like, they can't play, and I went, he said that one day to me. He said, hey, they can't play. It sounds like shit. I went, who gives a fuck? Listen to that energy. It's fantastic. I couldn't get my hands down. I thought I was excited. I thought it was the best thing I'd ever done. I really enjoyed it, and he didn't get that, the energy thing at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was. I thought it was good, and also because, Metallica has always set the bar high when they do albums. They always try to set in terms of playing technical stuff. They always set it very high, and that means they have to be on their best game in order to perform these songs and do it the way they want it. So it's always taken a while to do it because you need to get that really good performance. And
oh no, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and that's also why they improved so much in that period, because they got technically a lot better from album to album.
Incredible leaps. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a huge fan of Tom Waits, and you look at some of his music, and he really had leaps, but they were kind of, 7 albums in and he changes. Here, it's like the kind of very garage thrash, charming Kill 'Em All to like some of these songs. Like, as a producer, was it a sense of like, you can only go so far really, they have to bring the songs, and you do what's there. You must have found like you struck gold with this set of 8.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because I think we had the same vision about how it should sound, which more or less materialized on Master of Puppets, which was like a total walk in the park to do, because we were all on the same page, and we were all like pulling in the same direction and wanted it to sound the way it ended up, and it was like it was fun going to the studio because we all enjoyed it. And the songs were really good and all that. It was like we just knew this was going to be really, really good. And we did. I mean, they and none of us really cared what everybody else thought, because they had been trying to do this one song on Ride where they kind of tried to be a little bit commercial. What is it? That first song on side 2. What's it called?
Oh, Trapped Under Ice.
Yeah, that one. That was because when we did Ride, they were still on Megaforce Records, and they were trying to get a major label deal. So they kind of thought, let's do like a short song that the record label can put out as a single. But once they got the deal with Elektra, they kind of never looked back and went, we're not going to do anything to please anybody. We're just going to do what we want ourselves, which I think is the way you should do it. It's the classic, you can't please everybody, so at least please yourself. So,
and the amount of Stone Cold classics on this album, really. I mean, you could argue every song is kind of iconic in its own way, but stuff like Ride the Lightning, Bells Toll, Fade to Black, Creeping Death. It's just like, Jesus, it's a swarm of quality.
I was so up on that. Even the instrumentals. On
man,
Cthulhu. That's Cthulhu. Yeah, Orion is on master, right?
Yeah.
Cthulhu. I mean, that was like really good.
Yeah,
Cliff doing his solos. And it was like, wow.
Yeah. That song sounds great, by the way. Like from a sort of production, like it sounds so alive even now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think Bells is the first song we did to a click track ever.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
just to get it that tight, was it?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was probably me going, we need to, because they were probably speeding it up because they're used to the live situation and stuff, and they didn't know what a click track was when they came in and did Ride, but
So all in all, how many days were you in the studio?
I think for Riot it was only like a month and a half.
Right. Okay.
And they had some breaks and did some gigs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Master of Puppet, Riot was in spring. That's true. Yeah, I'm getting this wrong. Master was from September till New Year. We were like 4 months, 3.5 months.
And I mean, during that time then that spans kind of ending Ride the Lightning and before Master, like, Metallica were touring a hell of a lot, doing a lot of European tour dates all around the place and a lot of kind of co-headline shows. Was it with pride that you watched? Because it must have been so good to see them accelerate.
I was so proud, and nobody in Denmark, knew who Metallica was. I mean, we had to go probably beyond Injustice before my mom and everybody else started listening to Metallica, and obviously the closest in my family knew who they were, but I mean the general public didn't know anything about Metallica till like way into the Injustice for All period. And because obviously the underground, all the metal guys, and then when there was a big metal scene, they know who they were. But like if I spoke to somebody, some of my friends say, "Yeah, I'm doing Metallica," they went, "What's that?" I was like, "Really?" So yeah,
Unbelievable.
But I was really proud, and I actually I worked hard to get the albums to turn out the way they did.
Yeah, no, and obviously they're quite famously quite a picky band, and they kind of, but the fact that they came back to you twice more shows, how much faith they had in it.
Exactly, yeah. Well, I'm used to, because I work in the studio all the time, I'm used to, when people come to me to record, they have to be at their peak. So, they have to, I get their most stressed and most demanding periods. That's when they're with me, because everything they do with me is kind of, being kept for posterity. So, they have to be good. Otherwise they have to do it again. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm used, they were not like pickier than some of the really picky people. I mean, Richie was pretty picky. I mean, that was way worse. I mean, it was to a point where he didn't talk to the band and stuff. So
you in Back to the Front, which is the fantastic hardcover coffee table. I mention it every episode, it seems like, Flemming, but it is such a good book. I mean, it must have been great for you to go through the whole chapter dedicated to your time with the band, all the photos and stuff.
Well, the really good, interesting thing about that is I never got the book.
Oh no!
No, I never got it.
You deserve it.
I'm gonna call somebody and tell them to ship me a copy.
Yeah, they definitely should, because one of the quotes from you that I really liked about the Master Sessions, you said, quote, "My philosophy was to shut up and let the band fuck around. In the end, it's their album, not mine. That might have been unusual. There was a tendency in the 80s for producers to have a signature sound. It didn't matter who the band was because the end result always sounded the same." I mean, I wanted to ask you, what producers, can you name any?
Who did the same as I did?
No. Who had that tendency to put their sound on an album rather than letting a band play like you did?
Oh, there's tons of them. I worked with Roy Thomas Baker, who had this huge wall of sound kind of thing. He did Queen and stuff.
Okay.
Did a Danish band that kind of resembled that. But there was like a lot of these pop producers. It didn't really matter who they were. Everything they did just sounded the same. They're luckily forgotten now, but there was a lot of them, Stock Aitken Waterman, that kind of thing. No matter what they did, it all sounded the same. It's like you take any fairy tale and you stick Andrew Lloyd Webber on top of it, and they all sound the same.
Yeah. That's true.
It's like it's like building sandcastles. You have all this sand, and then you just take the Andrew Lloyd Webber mold and put it on it, and everything looks the same. It sounds the same.
Right.
I fucking hate it.
And you say as well in the book that Metallica are a really good demos band.
Oh yeah, man. The demos we got, they were absolutely fantastic. They more or less were ready to record when they got into the studio, so it was mainly just doing it.
That's incredible. Like,
yeah. And
you recorded the rhythm guitar first.
Yeah, we did the drums with the rhythm guitars. Just the guide rhythm guitars. Some of the time they'd play all of them, but we'd just keep the drums, and then we'd do the rhythm guitars on top of the drums. because normally you do drums, bass, guitars, solos, vocals, right? That would what you did in those days. But I recorded the rhythm guitars first because obviously it's riff based music, and even though the bass most of the time plays the same riff, I wanted James's feeling, the way he played the riffs, to be the predominant one, and then I wanted Cliff to play to that. Because then you get the feeling that the riff is written with, not instead of one that's interpreted by a bass player. So yeah, we did all the rhythm guitars, and then which turned out to be really good for Cliff because he was used to the live situation. So if he had almost a finished track to play to, he played a lot better. And he was kind of hippie, loose kind of guy.
Sure.
So he didn't like headphones. So we hooked up some speakers in the big room and blasted the track and had the amp in another room. And he could jump around and do his bass thing. It was really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, what a unique figure he was to the band.
Oh man, yeah. We really miss him. I just went to Sweden to a festival and it was the Bravalla festival and on the way home we passed the memorial site where the bus crashed, so we just went and said hi again.
Right. What is the memorial there? Is it just a little plaque or?
It's a stone. It's actually more like a gravestone, and it has the inscription from, I think it's "To live is to die."
Yeah.
It's really emotional, and it's not more. It's about 100, 200 meters from where the bus crashed.
Right.
So it's more or less the side of his death, which is kind of depressing.
Yeah.
But still, it's the second time I went there, so yeah, it's kind of it's also healing in a way.
No, I see what you mean, and the music he left behind on this album as well. I mean, Orion especially, what a masterpiece.
Oh yes.
Just such quality. Like the whole album, Flemming. Like, I mean, this album, forget heavy metal. This is regarded as one of the best albums ever. Like, it just kind of, the plaudits are so huge.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I keep winning these polls about best blah blah album.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
It went into the National Recording Registry by the Library of Congress.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
Crazy. Deemed culturally significant.
Yeah, exactly. I was, the pride just keeps coming on.
Mm-hmm. And just, I mean, a few of these songs, obviously, so many classics here. Something like Master of Puppets. How was that to record?
Master of Puppets was really easy to record. As I said, it was. We were all pulling in the same direction on that album. We had the demos, and we'd done Ride the Lightning together, so we knew each other. We didn't have that, where we had to kind of get to know and feel how we worked in a working situation. We just sat down and, did the sound, started working. And it was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And I think everybody had the feel that this is going to be really good. And also, I think that's why Justice turned out so differently, because we felt that after we'd done Master of Puppets, we'd kind of, we kind of nailed it for that direction. So I think they wanted, to try something new, which I understood, because, you couldn't do Master of Puppets better than that.
No.
I recently saw an article, I think Metal Hammer or something, where they were talking to the guys from Megadeth. And the bass player said when they heard Master of Puppets, they just went, "Damn, we'll never make an album like that." So it's yeah, got you.
Yeah, it's so iconic and triumphant and authoritarian, and yeah, it is. And again, 8 tracks, but a huge palette of sound on there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have. There are favorite bits on that for sure.
Like the main sort of Leper Messiah riff. It just, I think, sounds great. The drums on that sound great.
I love the intro for Sanitarium.
Oh man, yeah, beautiful, spacious.
It is. Yeah. If you listen carefully, if you put headphones on, we actually do the guitars in the beginning in mono,
Mm.
and then it's actually recorded like that, and then when the drums come in, I just flick a switch and it goes into stereo, which is actually a thing I kind of learned from Roy Thomas Baker. So
Signature sound, interesting.
that was, well, he did that a lot, and it's on some of the Queen albums and sounded really good. So I thought this is the spot where we do that, and it goes from sounding fantastic in mono to sounding incredible in stereo.
I don't know if this is slightly before your time. I was just on the Sweet Silent Studios website, and there's a picture of John Deacon from Queen in the studio.
That's me. Yeah, I'm there.
Oh, right. That's crazy.
I went out of high school and started building Sweet Silence. So they're actually on the Sweet Silence website is mine.
Right.
There's a few of them. I still have the studio still exists. It's just called Sweet Silence North, and it's in Helsingør now in Helsingør, where the Kronberg from the Hamlet play is situated. So yeah, it's still up and running. I still have the desk and everything.
So cool that all those images and places exist. I mean, do you, what is your sort of cultural clout within your native homeland? Are you seen as like a Rick Rubin or?
Not really,
No.
There's a lot of people who respect me for what I've done, and I'm still working. So I get the odd thing. The thing I do a lot these days is mastering. I have this whole new generation of metal / acid / 70s rock bands that records by themselves. I'll get it mixed or whatever, and then when it comes to mastering, they all come to me because then they get that sound they really like. Yeah, and I have a lot of analog gear and shit, and they're kind of into that.
Right.
So I still do a lot of recording. So yeah.
That's great. And the last real release I want to touch on in terms of Metallica was And Justice for All, recorded from January to May 1988. Is it correct that they originally went to Guns N' Roses' Mike Klink?
Well, they called me and asked me and said, we booked the studio. We start January 3rd. And I went, nice, cool. And I said, said, we want you. And I said, that's nice, but, I'm not off till March 1st. Because I was so booked by in that period. So, and they'd already booked the studio, so they decided to start with Mike Klink, who did Appetite for Destruction, which they really liked. Yep. They were totally nuts about that. And like 3 weeks into January, I got a phone call. This is before the mobile phones. This is like, a phone call at my house, and I pick it up, and it's Lars, and he says, one sentence, when can you come?
Right.
And I went like, what? I said, yeah, we've been in the studio for 3 weeks now. We've done fuck all. They're still doing guitar sound, and James doesn't like it, and said we decided we need to get you in. And I kind of took all my sessions and cramped them together, and I could leave on February 14th. And I was recently a father. My daughter is born December 10th, so I said the conditions are that I'm going to have to bring my whole family. I'm not going to leave a 2-month-old daughter and then come back like half a year later and she doesn't know who I am. So the whole family packed up and went to the States, and, Mike got fired. He literally got fired the day I flew in.
And what's happening there in your experience of like producing, like when a band and a producer don't get on? What's the cause for friction?
I think this was probably because he had his set ways of how things should sound that didn't fit to the Metallica sound. They all had a really big understanding of their own sound. James is a rhythm guitar should sound in a certain way, and blah 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 blah. And he was going for the old, like, more or less 70s kind of hard rock sound, and they were going for something completely different. So yeah, it was just a bad match because he's a really talented guy. I mean, it's nothing on him. It's just they didn't fit. So yeah, I came in and just tore everything down and built it up again.
And you listened to the mixes, did you? The original mixes? The demos?
I listened to the demos, yeah. I got the demos like literally the day before I flew over, so I listened to the demos like 5 times on the plane over and like mapped everything out so I was ready.
And that was with Mike Klink?
No, that was just the demos they'd done in Lars's garage.
Right, okay, interesting. Because it's just finally on Mike Klink. Apparently, he's credited on 2 tracks on the album, engineering the drums on Shorty Straw and Harvester of Sorrow.
Pretty sure he didn't do that. Pretty sure I did that. Just whatever.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I recorded all the drums.
Okay. Well, I'll have to see where I got that footnote from. But regardless, like the album, if you were to just give people the album and sort of explain without context, they would detect that something must have happened in the band's personal life in a certain extent to make them just go so inward with the songwriting and so jagged. And was it quite a difficult environment to work in, as the aftermath of the accident? Yeah.
And then again, because the situation was the way it was, they'd already been at it for like 4 or 5 weeks when I got there. It was just work. We kind of worked like 14 hours a day. We did I started at 10, ended up at midnight. Some days we'd go till slightly past midnight, and then we'd go a bit further past midnight, and we'd start it. Then we'd say, okay, let's start at 11 tomorrow. And as that kept progressing, we kind of, pushed the start time an hour all the time because we went so late. There was actually one point where we started at 5 in the morning because we'd gone all the way around the clock.
Right.
Kind of. That was one of the 3 days I had off in those 4 months. That was the day that we kind of caught up on by pushing the hours to. So we were kind of on a 25-26 hour day, right? So everything got kind of pushed.
And the sort of music that you're working as well when you're without sleep, like some of the songs are so noodly and slivery, they're quite brain mashers in a certain sense. It was, how did you think about the music? Because obviously you're in the unique position of sort of getting the demos before you hear it before anyone else. Like, were you surprised?
I really liked it. Yeah. No, I really liked it. I thought it was good that they were trying to do something else, and the fact that we moved to another studio made us do the sounds differently. And it was really good. We did some really good guitar sounds on that album. They'd again got new boogie amps that I fucked around with. It was kind of cool. I had this setup where we had the amps in the studio, and at the back of any amp there's a loop you can actually put, stick a pedal in, and so it's on all the time. And I stuck some professional, studio quality equalizers in there,
right?
So I could actually sit in the control room and add more low end or take ugly mids out and kind of scoop them the way I wanted. And they were loving that because the guitar sounds we have on Justice are pretty fucking amazing.
Yeah. I think like Harvester of Sorrow, the sort of middle riff just sounds fantastic, and a lot of the Shorty Straw stuff. A lot of people might point to Jason's bass absence. What's the story with that?
Well, that's pretty common knowledge by now. It was because when they got inaugurated into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, we had Steve Thompson and Michael Barriero there, who mixed the album, and they did a roast the day before on in like the House of Blues right next to in Cleveland, and they went on stage and went, well, this is what happened. So what happened was that they did a mix that they thought sounded really, really good, which had loads of bass in it. And the bass, let me just point out, the bass tracks on Justice for All are absolutely fantastic. He plays really well, Jason. I think he probably tried to prove that he was worth, that he was up there with Cliff, which in my opinion he is. It's a different style, but he is as good a bass player as Cliff, but just in a different way.
Yeah.
And I've heard the bass tracks, and they're absolutely amazing. They sound good. He plays well. But, they heard the mix, and they went, all right, take the bass down, change this, and this, and then take the bass down so you can barely hear it.
Mm.
And then once they'd done that, they said, yeah, take it another 3 dBs down. So it's, why they did that, I have no idea. It could be that they were still grieving about Cliff,
sure.
and I have no idea.
Yeah.
But when I imagine my surprise when I heard the album, when I got the album, I was like, what the? I was like, what?
Yeah. It is an odd mix, isn't it? It's not quite got the breath of Nasta. Yeah,
no, but yeah, well, again, it got really criticized when it came out. And people got more or less blown away because of the dryness of the sound, and it just goes bang right in your face. But, the Justice for All is probably the single album the last, 30 years who's been most influential in terms of sound for like a whole generation of hardcore metal bands. Because, they all wanted to sound like Injustice for All. That really clicky, high-endy bass drum. All that stuff. So every time I hear a bass drum like that, I'm going, yeah, I'm really sorry about that.
Right.
That's my mistake. But I didn't mix it.
No, I think what it captures, the songs are absolutely terrific, no doubt. Like, it's very much their tech prog, quite difficult stage, but compositionally so impressive. Dyer's Eve, for example, is an amazing closer. Like, what were your thoughts with the Black Album? Was it kind of accepted that they weren't going to call you for that one, or?
No, it was. We actually made a deal. They wanted to try something new, which is the classical. It's the classical management thing they want, they wanted to keep it in America. I think they were, because I think they felt that they were too far away in Denmark, when they did the album, so they didn't have enough say in it. I don't know, whatever. But they actually called me before and said, we're going to try with this Bob Rock guy, but we want to pay you to be standby in case it's a new Mike Klink. So they paid me to see if it went well. Because if Bob Rock, if they didn't work out with Bob Rock, they would have just sacked him and I would have been flown in.
Yeah, but
I think the Black Album's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
and it is a change from everything they've done before, where all the albums before that, they had these really long songs with like 5-10 different riffs in them. Now they went to one song, one riff. I mean, Enter Sandman is basically the same riff for 5 minutes, but it works.
Yeah.
So and the fact that James had gotten so confident in his voice that he started exploring the singing parts.
Yeah, he really did have a great voice tucked away, didn't he? It's quite amazing. Yeah, and it's great that you got that out of them as well. And then as they continued, they became effectively the biggest band in the world at a certain point.
With the Black Album, they did. That was I
mean, just
I was pretty happy when Injustice came out because it kind of went to number 1 and pushed Michael Jackson down to number 2. That was big for me.
And later on, what are your thoughts on Saint Anger? What do you think of that album?
It depends on my mood on the day, because I think they should have points for trying. Because I mean, they really do try. Every second time I hear it, I think they really do try to do something new in terms of changing the way metal sounds. And I think that they really make a good effort in trying to do something different. And then the other second time I hear it, I just feel it sounds like a really bad demo that never should have been released.
Right.
So it's like, but some of the songs are really good.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm not a fan of the way that sounds.
Right.
To say it the least.
What about Death Magnetic? You a fan?
I kind of like that. I still hate the way it's way too compressed and like mastered to death.
Yeah.
But I kind of like the album.
Yeah, I mean compositionally, it's got quite a lot of good songs. I feel.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it kind of gets lost in that loudness war discussion. And, I'd like to have like a vinyl of that where they kind of take all the mastering away and just release the unmastered on vinyl. That would be nice. Just get some dynamics in there. It's the kind of ultimate scare example of too much master compression.
Yeah, it does have a kind of brittleness, doesn't it? It doesn't have much.
Well, that's also because they've actually raised the level to above the distortion. It's actually at +1 or something to make it louder, and that kind of introduces digital distortion as that kind of brittle thing. So.
And hardwired production-wise, is that an improvement for you?
Oh, definitely. That's a really good. I really like that. That almost sounds like the stuff we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice. Especially the snare sounds absolutely amazing. Really good. I really like it. And I think there's some really good songs on there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
Well, that's after the Black Album. That's the album I would have liked to have done. Hardwired.
I mean, it would be, Metallica understand that theirs is quite a romantic story to fans in a certain way, and they're very respectful of their history. Would that ever happen? Would they ever say, "Come on, Flemming, let's do the next album"? Like,
nobody knows.
Yeah?
It's up to them, more or less.
Yeah, it's.
But I mean, before Hardwired came out, my opinion would have been, I need to hear the songs first because I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to ruin my reputation by doing a crap Metallica album.
Sure.
But after Hardwired, I'm pretty confident that they'll continue to do good shit for a while because they, in my opinion, they still have it.
And I'm just checking a few of your credits on your website. Alongside the Metallica studio releases, you mixed some of the Freddie Mercury tribute concert.
Yeah.
What was that about?
It was Metallica. They hired me to fly over, and I don't know who recorded it. Some mobile truck recorded it, and once it was done and they were finished with the reels, I took the reels and went to CBS Studios in London and mixed it all night. And it was done in the morning and shipped to a CD factory. And the next day, the CD, you could get the Nothing Else Matters, Sad But True, and Enter Sandman live from the Freddie Mercury tribute with Metallica.
Nice. That's great. That's great. Yeah. Great performances by them as well there. And of course, they won the Grammy for One as well, major honor.
Yeah. I have the one hanging on my wall in the studio.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, that's so good. And just what a joy as well to see them break through that mainstream barrier.
Yeah, it was ridiculous the year before Jethro Tull won. It was like, what the hell? It was the Academy didn't know what heavy metal was, so they thought, well, we like this better and voted for that. And
I guess to wrap up, Flemming, like, in general, do you ever speak to the guys at all? Have you spoken to them recently? Yeah, you do still. That's
yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
I'm gonna. They played Copenhagen this spring.
Oh, right.
James got ill, so they're coming back on September 2nd. I'm gonna go say hi again. I've done a band in Belgium called Toxic Shock that has a release gig on November 2nd. In Antwerp, and guess who's playing the 1st and the 3rd in Antwerp? Metallica, so I'm going to see them there as well. It's kind of funny. So yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. And I mean, I just want to say thank you so much for your time. This has been enlightening, and I really, really appreciate getting the answers to so many questions I've long held as well.
Cool.
Ways people can get in touch with you, is it just mainly for your website, is it, or?
Yeah, they just go on my Facebook. I have Sweet Silence North Facebook. I have the Flemming Rasmussen Facebook. I have a website, sweetsilencestudios.com. And, you can send a note for me there, and I'm ready to work. Just, if you want something done, call me.
Yep, all right. Well, Flemming, this has been a joy, as I say. Once again, thank you so much.
You're welcome.